Welcome to the Typical Sportsman Podcast. I've got a good one for you today. I've got a one that might bring you to tears. One of my good friends, Mr. Darrell Gogert, recently shot a 40 anniversary buck. The story is absolutely incredible. 40 years to the day from the very first deer that he shot with his grandpa's old rifle. 40 years to the day, just about 85 miles from where that happened, he shoots what could possibly be his last buck in the mountains. It moves him to tears. It moves me to tears. What's important about the whole episode is that we as hunters take time to remember what we do, why we do it, how we do it. Take time to think back on those memories. Take time to go back and hunt those places while we still have the chance. For me, it's the tall pines down in South Arkansas. Getting down there is one of my favorite times of the year, and just spending time in the place where I grew up, cutting my teeth, learning deer, learning whitetails, learning what it meant to be a hunter, learning how to hunt. So I just want to encourage you, while you've still got the time, go back to those places where it all began. Go back to those places and hunt with those people that you did back in the day, because there's going to come a time where you no longer get to do that. It is an incredible story. We start by talking about getting kids involved, helping get kids their first deer, helping get kids introduced into the woods. Why? Because these stories would have never happened unless somebody took the time to get us introduced. Guys, it is a great story. I would highly encourage you to stay tuned in. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at ScentLock. It's whitetail season. That means I'm pretty much living in my ScentLock. A lot of people make really great clothes. But what really sets ScentLock apart, especially for whitetail hunting, is the activated carbon for maximum odor absorption. Odor is one of the biggest issues in the whitetail woods. You cannot trick a whitetail deer's nose. So I want my clothes to be infused with activated carbon so that the odor is being absorbed and I can hunt with a little bit of insurance. I like to call it wind insurance. If they get downwind of me, they're still going to smell me. However, it gives me a little bit of insurance that it might give me those extra few seconds to make the shot. Go check out ScentLock and their entire lineup of incredible hunting apparel. Let's jump in with Mr. Darrell Gogert and talk about the 40-year anniversary buck.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
There are a lot of great companies making a lot of great bows. Pretty much if you go buy a new bow today, it's going to be a good shooting bow. However, very few bow companies are still single family owned. Even fewer bow companies are Christian owned, which is a very important value to me. And third, very few companies are really looking to push the needle in innovation. That is why I align myself with Prime. Prime, when I made the switch to Prime and I got my hands on this RVX 32 right here, I spent so much time with that bow. I put so many arrows through it. I took it on several different hunts in several different climates and put it just through about anything you can put a bow through. And it performed in every way that I needed it to. It shoots really well. It balances really well. Super high quality. The materials that go into it are great. And then in 2025 comes the form, which just goes to show you that Prime is really looking to move the needle in archery innovation, which is something that's important to me. So guys, that is why I align myself with Prime. I would highly encourage you to go to a Prime dealer and shoot the bows. I would highly encourage you to go to g5prime.com and check out their full lineup. Prime makes a phenomenal bow, but it's also a company that I can feel good about standing behind and supporting. So go check out Prime for your next bow. Darrell, The redneck chemist Gogert. What's up, man? How you doing?
Same old, buddy.
You've already, the reason we're here, anytime I hear a story like the one I heard of yours, I want to share it with the world because it's a really cool story. So correct me if I'm wrong. 40 years ago, you shot your very first deer ever, correct?
Correct.
What, I mean, I know you live out where the crazy deer are. So is this a whitetail? Is this a blacktail? What was that?
Mule deer. Yep,
Mule deer.
Yep.
So, before we get to the 40-year anniversary hunt, so we're here because Darrell, on the 40th anniversary day of when he shot his first deer, he shot one of his last deer in the area where he cut his teeth. So it was a sentimental day. It was a special day. But before we get into all of that, tell me about your start to hunting, man. Like, who got you in it? How did that, evolve?
Oh, shoot, man. My dad was a hunter. He always had me out, anytime he could. We were chasing coyotes or, chasing a chucker across the mountain in Nevada. Or, I remember when I was a little kid, my dad used to call coyotes, and I was, probably 6, 7 years old. He would have me by the hand and take me out across the desert in Nevada, and we'd sit in the brush, and I couldn't sit still. And, so that's where it all started, that kind of stuff like that, and got my first bow, and I could barely pull one back, a little recurve. And yeah, my dad always took me hunting and always had me going. Man, we used to walk around. I lived in a little town in central Nevada, Lovelock. And my friends and I would just take off walking, go out in the deserts and shoot whatever we could shoot, It was probably illegal, a lot of the stuff we were shooting back then, but whatever we could shoot, we would go shoot. And, that's just, I remember those days like it was yesterday when I was a kid, and we just go, we were just free to do whatever,
The good old days, man, the Wild West.
Yeah, for sure.
You live in Idaho, but you didn't grow up in Idaho, correct?
Correct. Well, there's something to that. So I really didn't grow up in Idaho, but my grandparents lived here. So my grandpa was a truck driver, drove from Idaho to California, and he would bring me up here every summer, and that's another part of getting into, all the things I got into. My grandpa used to take me to, it's called a Buckskin Bill Rendezvous. And it was always up in the mountains. And there's guys that dress up in their buckskins and shoot black powder rifles and throw tomahawks and, have challenges that way. And so I kind of grew up in Idaho to an extent, because I spent, since I was, 8 or 10 years old, every summer I spent in Idaho. Yeah,
that's cool, man. So leading up to this first deer, how long before? Now, this wasn't with a bow, right? This was
rifle.
First deer with a rifle. Leading up to that, did Grandpa have any rules of or Dad have any rules of hey, got to shoot X amount of small game before you can go, hunt big game? I've heard some guys, and there's a graduation process. Before you can go out and shoot a deer, we got to shoot squirrels, rabbits. You got to learn on those things first. Or was it just, the natural progression of it?
He never really had any rules about it, but he was adamant on practice. We would go out to the deserts and take the rifle, and we would just walk around and shoot jackrabbits with our rifles just out of pure practice, and we'd actually shoot our deer rifles. My dad was a hand loader, and he hand loaded all of his shells, so we didn't have to, spend money on, at the store to buy shells. And, I remember he used to take a 14-inch tire. He had a piece of metal inside of it, and he would stand up on the hill and he would roll it down the hill and make me shoot at it as it was moving, and you always knew when you hit it because you hear that ping when you hit that piece of metal. But, it was definitely a thing where it was practice. And I think a lot of that is gone these days. I don't think guys, son. I just don't think, everybody's so busy in their lives, and you just don't hear about this kind of stuff ever happening anymore. And I'm sure there's still some people out there that still do it, that guys like me that, I will teach my grandkids the same thing. You know, you've got to put the time behind the gun to make sure you kill the deer ethically.
You know, not only are schedules so just busy, crazy, but the advancements in technology has made it where you don't have to practice as much. So you've got, and I do think with the advancements in technology, you've got guys on one side of the scale that practice all the time and shoot out to 100, 120, 115 yards, and they practice these crazy long distances and they're phenomenal shots. But then in the same breath, you've got people who, well, dude, if I just pull my bow out of the case a day before, I can, make sure she's still sighted in and go hunt. Like, so there's really none of this like, man, I've really got to work hard and practice, because technology has just come so far. I can take a child, not a child, I can take a teenager, and if they can pull back 45 pounds, we can have them hitting the kill zone of a deer in about, an hour. From never shooting a bow to pulling it back, we can have them shooting the kill zone of a deer in an hour. And so there's just this like with how, and again, man, I grew up obviously much later than you did because you're old. But I'll tell you how I grew up, though. I grew up with my dad's old 89 Hoyt game getter. And that's what he had because that's what Chuck Adams shot, And so he passed that down to me. So all my friends got these, 2005s, 2006s, nicer bows. Well, my bow has like a 5% let off, and it feels like you're holding back more than you even drew. Like, it was a tough bow to shoot. I had to practice with that thing. It sounded like a gun going off. And then like the moment you jump up to the technology advancements that we have, it's like, oh, dude, I can shoot this. Like, I don't even have to practice anymore. This is easy. And so it took out, for the longest time, I fell into that trap of like, well, I don't need to practice. I can just go out and shoot this bow and I'll be good. And now I'm on what I would say the other end of the spectrum, where like, I just want to challenge myself, push myself. Like, let's shoot 100 yards, 110 yards, 115 yards. But still, I just think with the advancements in technology, it's taken out that need to really get out there. And we're talking bows, but the same could be applied to rifles. I mean, you could take the same, I could take the same stance on rifles. Because again, these rifles today are just so incredibly accurate. Scopes are so incredibly accurate that again, a child can be ready to shoot in no time at all. And there's not that need to practice. And so it's just, I agree with you, man. I think it's a lost, I don't want to say a lost art. I think it's a lost value in going out and constantly practicing and shooting and honing your skills.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, I don't know. I think that was all part of it. For me, when I was a kid, it was the work up to deer season, right? Deer season started in October every year. And the work up to that was we clean our rifles, we'd go to the range and make sure they were on. And we'd spend a couple of weeks in the desert walking, every couple of days a week, going to shoot rabbits and making sure everything worked. And I still say it's like you said, it's not necessarily a lost art, but it's a lost value that, we just take it for granted that we just go out and kill an animal and that's the end of it. Right. Even to that point, cutting up meat, there's so many guys that just, they never learned from grandpa or dad or whoever how to process and cut up their own stuff. Right. So they go out for 1 day or 2 days or a weekend and they kill a deer and they drop it off at the processor and it comes back to them all ready to eat. Right. And to me, part of the whole process is cutting it up and processing and knowing my family's eating the best protein they can eat.
Yeah. Not only that, but just the woodsmanship of it is gone. And I'm just as guilty as anybody. I'm not sitting on a high horse saying I never use trail cameras. I never use Onyx. I use all those tools. And it has taken away the woodsmanship aspect of it. It really has. And it's just, again, it's a value that is lost. And that's why, like, I just love going out into the Ozarks with my dad, where I was born and raised, where I cut my teeth. And he kind of goes back to those old school values and traditions of using woodsmanship rather than just relying on Oh, well, dude, I've got trail cameras out. I've got cell cameras out all year long that are sending me pictures to my phone. I know right where to go, know right where to sit. You almost don't even have to rely on instinct anymore because you look at the trail cameras from the week before and you know where to go sit. And it's just, so not only is the value of practice gone, but the value of woodmanship is gone. And man, it's something that honestly, I don't know how to get back. Like, I don't know how you ever get back to that. I don't know how you rewrite that. But I wish that there was a way to reinstill the value of practice and woodsmanship.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. You know, it's just like, you know, my dad had a set of binoculars, right? An old pair of Simmons binoculars. We never had optics where we could, like, now, I mean, I'm probably one of the worst at it. I'll sit back 1.5, 2 miles away on these mountains and I will find deer. And if I don't find a deer, I don't go walk, right? When I was a kid, talking about my first deer hunt, we knew where we were going to go. My dad picked out a canyon off of the map and he said, okay, we need to get up at 3:00 in the morning to be able to get to this spot to make sure we can park in the dark, get our stuff ready, and we're going to walk, right? And we take off and we walk down these canyons and we walk all the way down this big, long canyon. Didn't see a deer one. Turn around, we walk back up to the top. We get almost back to the top where the pickup's at, and here's 2 bucks standing there, right?
Yeah.
But we spent the time, we spent the blood, sweat, and tears of the grind, and people don't know that anymore. You know, kids don't know that, you know, even in the whitetail woods, right? Like they would go walk those whitetail woods and they would find deer and they would push them out and they would shoot them that same way back when. You know, so it's a different time now. And I mean, I enjoy the time. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy having great optics and being able to do what we do. But I think being able to share that with my grandkids, the way we used to do it, is long gone.
Yeah. And that's something, to where I've been actively trying to take steps. You know, I keep saying that I'm going to go a year without a trail camera and just get back to that joy of like, I don't know what deer are in here. I mean, I know there's deer in here. You can see the tracks. You can see the damage on the food plot, not the damage. You can see the impact they made on the food plot. I know there's deer in here. I don't know what deer. And because I've said so many times, like, I used to love that joy as being a kid of like, you see that first doe coming in, you're like, holy crap, there are deer here. Like, yes. And then, you know, you see a buck come in, you're like, dude, there's bucks in here. Like, yes. And I miss that joy, that excitement, that uncertainty of what's in there. And it takes out a lot of the stress about chasing one particular deer. It takes out a lot of the stress of, well, I know there's this mega giant in here, so I'm going to pass this deer up. Like, it takes a lot of that stress out. And if a deer comes in, you get fired up about it, you shoot it, not knowing, hey, there might be a 160 in here. There might be a 180 in here. But I've been actively trying to take steps, with my compound, just simplifying the compound setup and even switching to a recurve. Like, hey, let's just hunt with a recurve for a while. Let's make it challenging on ourselves to where we have to get in closer. Because again, used to, like, you had to be very, very mindful of your setups because you wasn't shooting 35, 40 yards. Like, that was unheard of. Like,
yeah,
you're not going to shoot a deer at 30 yards with a bow. What are you thinking? Because again, the technology wasn't there. And I'm, again, before I get all the backlash, I understand that I was a kid when the technology was there to shoot that far. I understand that. But I didn't grow up with that technology. I grew up with an old hand-me-down bow where the cams were the size of a quarter. And so I couldn't shoot that far. I mean, I couldn't. And so you had to be very mindful of your setups. You had to be very mindful of where you were setting up. And so that was for me, part of going back to a recurve of like, okay, I got to be more mindful. I can't just sit a field edge and shoot a deer anywhere in the field with my bow. Like, I want to be purposeful. I want to be mindful and set up purposeful sets to where I have to get these deer within 20, 25 yards to make the shot, if not closer, because I'm a terrible shot, if not closer. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right, dude. And it's not just, like you said, it's not just the advancements in our shooting equipment. It's the advancements in our optics, rangefinders, everything. It's just made the game that much. I don't want to say easier, because it is not easy to kill big game animals. And everybody, I think, knows my heart when I say that, but it has become easier to do it. And it has taken out the need to go out and practice and work and hone your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, like I say, I go back to shooting jackrabbits. You're shooting them offhand with your rifle, wherever you can see them, anywhere from 40 yards to 100 yards with your rifle. But see, a lot of people, if they don't understand mule deer hunting in the West, 90% of the areas we hunt don't have a tree. You don't have a rest. When you're walking through the brush, you're walking out there, and those mule deer will be laying down, right? And they'll jump up 30 yards in front of you. And I'll tell you, I'll bet you 80 to 90% of mule deer, when they jump up, they will run out to 100 yards and stop and turn around and look at you.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of a mule deer. And a lot of people don't know that, right? I guided some guys from out in the Midwest, and I tell them, you stand right here. I'm going to go spook this deer out. They go, oh, it's going to run. They don't run. They're curious animals by nature. They'll run 100 yards and they stop and they stand there. So if you are a good shot and you can hold your own at 100 yards offhand, you'll always kill your deer and you always have meat on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that first deer. So the very first deer that you shot, man, it's funny because it's happened so long ago, because you're old. No, I'm just kidding. I say that for everybody. Like, it's happened so long. It seems like a century ago. Like, it seems like just, man, there's been so much that's happened since. You've learned so much since. Like, but yet I can still think back to that very first deer. Like, I know that day like the back of my hand. I mean, I can still see the pines. I can still, see and hear my dad's excitement. Like, I can tell you everything that happened that day, because it was just so incredibly special. If you are a traditional archer, then you are probably familiar with Three Rivers Archery. If you are an aspiring traditional archer, you've probably heard of Three Rivers Archery. And if you are even curious about traditional archery or hope to do it one day, you need to become familiar with Three Rivers Archery. Why? Because Three Rivers Archery is a wealth of knowledge on all things traditional archery. You can call those guys up, whether you're going to buy from them or not, and ask them any question under the sun, and they'll be able to help you. From spining of arrows to weights of broadheads to string links to AMO links, any question in between, tuning a bow, they are there to help you. They also sell everything you could ever dream of needing when being a traditional archer, from bows and arrows, broadheads, tabs, gloves, strings, stringers, cases, display racks. If it has to do with traditional archery, Three Rivers has it, and they know about the product. So you can call them and ask them any kind of question, and they're there to help you. They are the single largest distributor of all things traditional archery. They offer same-day shipping. They are phenomenal. Guys, if you are a traditional archer or you've ever even wanted to look in traditional archery, Three Rivers Archery is your place to go for all things traditional archery. So, walk me through that first day, man. How did that all unfold for you?
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. We got up at 3 a.m. and drove from Lovelock to Battle Mountain, on the other side of Battle Mountain, and then up a canyon there, up on top of a big plateau mountain, and walked down that canyon. We looked everywhere, high and low, couldn't find any deer. Walked back up to the top, and there's 2 forked horns standing there. And I just remember, Dad, to take your pick, whichever one you want. And I end up shooting one of them forked horns. And, he was never picky on what deer we shot. He always told us, we want to shoot the most mature deer we can, because the more mature they are, the more meat they have. And that was just instilled in us. But, this time it was my first deer. And he said, hey, if you feel like you want to shoot one of them, go ahead. And I remember shooting that deer, and it literally was near the truck. Like, we didn't have to do anything for that. We just, when we were done, we shot it, gutted it, cut the legs off, threw it in the pickup. My dad had a tag still, and we went and drove around a little bit longer, tried to find him one. And didn't get his, so headed home. But, I just always remembered that first day. And, back then I didn't think it was anything special because, when you're a kid, you just don't think of things that way. But the rifle that I was shooting at the time was my grandpa's. My grandpa died in 1978, I believe it was. I know I was very young. And he always had a lot of guns. I remember as a kid going in his house, and you'd always take a peek in grandpa's bedroom, right? Look and see in the cabinet to see the guns that are in there, because they're so pretty. And, I just remember they left me one when I was a kid, and when I turned 12, that's the gun that I got. And it's a 257 Roberts. And I just always loved that gun. And that's what I killed the first deer with. And I just always remembered that gun and that time.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And again, it's like thinking back to some of those, now that you're older and you understand like the sentimental value of that. Looking back on some of the deer I shot, the rifle that I shot them with is more valuable to me than even the deer itself, because of the things it had done, because of the things it had seen, because of the hands that had held it, as it had progressed through its life. And I mean, you take a lot of that for granted when you're a kid. And yeah, like you said, dude, that first deer I shot, first off, I want to commend your dad. For teaching you the value in, hey, we do want to kill bigger, more mature animals. There's value in that, and being a selective hunter, not a trophy hunter. Trophy hunting by definition is illegal. But in being a selective hunter, in other words, we select the animals that are most mature and should be taken off of the landscape for the benefit of the deer, for the benefit of the deer population. So teaching you that, but also saying like, hey, if you see one, man, that gets you excited, take off. It's yours. And that for me, that's also how my dad was like, hey, let's learn the value in being a selective hunter. And sometimes being a selective hunter means we don't shoot a buck, we shoot 4 does instead. But let's learn what deer need to be taken off of this. But you're also a kid. And I'm also not going to take the joy of hunting away from you, because every deer that comes in, I say, you can't shoot that one. You can't shoot that one. You can't shoot that one. So I want to give some advice to the dad that's listening as you get your kids into hunting. Teach them the value and understanding what deer need to be taken off of the ground, but also don't enforce those rules at first. And what I mean by that is, as we grow up as hunters, we should start saying like, okay, son, well, you shot a spike last year, so let's graduate from that. Or maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years. But as the kid continues to grow and mature as a hunter, then we start teaching them, okay, well, we don't want to shoot a 1.5 year one anymore. Like the last couple of years we shot those, but let's try and wait for a bigger, more mature deer, and teach them as they mature, teach them what it looks like to hold out and wait for those bigger, more mature deer. But at first, like I've seen dads where their kid's 7 years old and they've got their crossbow in hand, man. They're about to shoot their first deer, and a little basket 6 comes out, and the dad's like, we got bigger. Let's wait. And the kid's like, but there's a big buck here. Like, I want to shoot this one. And then a doe comes out. Well, we don't really want to shoot any does. I just want to shoot a deer, Dad. And they're taking the joy of hunting away. They don't realize it. They're taking the joy of hunting away because that kid is amped to shoot that animal. So at first, let them shoot whatever they want. Like whatever tickles their fancy, let them shoot it. And that doesn't just go for kids. I think that goes for any new hunter. As I got my wife introduced into hunting, the same rules applied. Like, hey, babe, here's what we want to achieve eventually. But for now, shoot what makes you happy. Shoot whatever gets you excited. And when doing that, I think what you do is you create a lifelong hunter because you didn't take the joy away early. So kudos to your dad. I think he did a really good job there with letting you shoot that, because I was in the same boat, dude. That first deer I shot, my dad grabbed it by all 4 legs and picked it up and walked out of the woods with it. Like it still had milk on its lips. I mean, she was tender. I'll tell you that, boy. Second deer I ever shot, I thought was a doe. But it was just, I said, Dad, my doe has nuts. And he said, well, son, that there is a buck. It's just young. It's just a little bitty. It's a 40-pounder,
Button buck.
So no, it didn't even have buttons yet, man. I mean, it was, it didn't have buttons. I'm talking like spots had just went away. And, that was the second deer. And I was amped. I'm like, wait, I shot a buck. And then I got even more excited because I'm like, yes, everybody wants a buck. I can't believe I shot a buck. But yeah, thinking back to those times, man, those are unforgettable experiences. And I wish, I honestly don't even know how to go back and find the day, like to know what day that was on. But you had the unique opportunity 40 years later to the day. How far were you from the area that the first deer was, that the 40-year anniversary deer was?
Oh, probably only, as the crow flies, probably 85 miles, to drive it. That's 2 hours, 2 hours away.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned first deer, like, and I kind of, I guess it wasn't my fault, but like, I feel like I ruined my son in that aspect, my youngest son. I was guiding at the time that my son was about to kill his first deer, 12 years old. And we glassed up some deer. They bedded down underneath a rock pile. And it was two nice 4 points, 4x4s, which you guys would call, what would that be? That'd be a 10-pointer for you guys. But this was a really nice deer, and he bedded under the rocks, and it was a long walk. And I asked my son, I said, you want to try to go kill that? And it was archery season. And he says, oh, yeah, let's walk up there. And it was a 2.5-hour hike up the mountain to get on top of this rock pile. We're standing on top of this rock pile, and there's about 135, 140-inch 4-point, little 22-inch basket rack, nice little deer, just laying there in the open in the shade, like laying there. We're literally 12 yards from this deer. We snuck right in on it. And I said, shoot that one right there. And he turned and looked at me, and he says, I don't want to shoot that one. I want the big one. And that big one was laying over the edge, and he couldn't see it very well, just could see the tips of his horns. So this 12-year-old had the mind to draw his bow back and lean out over the top of this rock pile and try to shoot that deer. And he leaned out over there, and then he came back and he let his bow down. And I said, what happened? He said, there's a rock sticking out. He said, my arrow will hit that rock if I try to shoot him. He had the mind at 12 years old to say he knew. And this comes with practice, right? I used to make my son practice.
So what you're telling me is your son's just a straight up stud. That's what you're telling me.
This kid, he's something else. Anyhow, so I tell him, I say, okay, get ready. I'm going to throw a rock down the hill. And I threw a rock as far as I could throw it, about 100 yards if I'm lucky, down the hill.
Yeah.
Threw a rock down there, and a doe stood up down there. And then that buck stood up, and he started walking. He walked about 50 yards, and my son was at full draw, and I could see him just shaking. I just knew. I was like, oh, he's going to miss. There's no way. And that deer stepped out, and he plugged that deer. And it ended up being a 178-inch velvet mule deer.
Oh, my gosh.
First buck of his life. He ended up killing. And, to this day, I kind of wonder, because he's like, he doesn't have a ton of interest in hunting. And I don't know that, to me, I feel like I ruined what was sacred to him. Like, where does he go from here? Honestly, I mean, 178-inch deer, that's hard to top anymore. This day and age, it's almost 180-inch deer. It's almost hard to top it anymore. You don't find those kind of deer hardly anymore. So I don't know, like I say, to all the fathers listening out there, right? Don't let your kid kill that giant deer the first year. Take them somewhere else. Don't even show them those deer. Go show them a forked horn. They got somewhere to work up to, right? It's just, I just feel like some days I let them down because I let them kill this big deer.
Yeah. I had a similar situation. This kid in my youth group started hunting. Year one, he shoots a spike, maybe as a forky, but just even if it was 4-inch forks. And the next year he calls me, and you could tell he was shaking. He had shot a deer, and he said, dude, I just shot a big buck. Can you come look at it? And I'm like, I was actually packing up the car. We were heading out of state. And I'm like, oh, dude, I can't today, man. I'm getting ready to get on the road, head to Arkansas. And he's like, okay. Well, he calls him back about 5 minutes later. He's like, hey, we're going to bring the buck into town. Can you just meet me at Gaston's and look at it? And I'm like, which that was on my way out of town. So I'm like, yes, like I would love to come look at it. And I pull up, and honestly, I was expecting to roll up to see a nice, 135, 140 inch buck. And I come around the back of that truck, and there was already people out there measuring it. And I'm like, holy crap, 241 inches. Jeez. Just an absolute, it was gross. Just a crazy cool deer. Like people were literally calling him like, hey, we want to put this in our magazine. Can we get this in our magazine? Like Bass Pro is calling him like, hey, can we buy this deer from you? We want this deer. And I still in my office have that calendar hanging up on, March of whatever year it was, 2018, just because it's, this kid's deer in that calendar. But I'll be honest, man, I stopped and I was like, crap, dude, he's not going to want to hunt anymore. Like, where does he go from here? It never gets better than this. You just shot a 241 inch deer at 20, however many, I mean, nobody will ever have a deer like that close in front of them. And you did it year 2 as a kid. Like, where do you go from here? And, I think he still hunts off and on, some here and some there, but I just know those first years, it was like, he was all in, like it was, all in. And then it's kind of like, now it's just kind of like, well, I'm going to go out and shoot a deer. Like I better go hunt,
That's what Derek is too.
Oh my Lord. Look at that.
But the boy put in the work.
Christmas.
The boy put in the work, and he made the conscious decision not to shoot the little one because he wanted the big one. But like I say, it sucks because he kind of followed in my footsteps, and not that I'm the best hunter around. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have killed what I killed, but I've killed some really nice stuff, and I've taken some guys to kill some really nice animals. And I think he was kind of watching that and saying, oh, I need to impress my dad. I need to kill the big one, and that's, unfortunately, that's not what I would be impressed with. I was impressed with him making the connection and making the shot. And, that was more important to me than the big animal, but the big animal's a plus, I guess.
Yeah. One more piece of advice for the dads out there. Take your kids on the easy days, on the fun days. And what I mean by that is me and my brother had 2 complete different experiences in our entries to hunting. He went on a cold, snowy, disgusting day, whereas sleeping bag froze over, the night before when they were camping and just froze to death and didn't see any deer. And it was just like, this is stupid, dude. Why does anybody do this? And, he doesn't hunt. And then my entries were, down South Arkansas, where you're going to see hundreds of deer. It was warm. We were sitting in a tower blind. I had snacks. I had drinks. And I would like to say it's because I'm my dad's favorite, but it's also just because my dad had a better farm by that time. I'm not my dad's favorite. I'm probably the least favorite. And so my entry to hunting was a lot more comfortable, a lot more fun, saw a lot more deer, saw a lot more action. So I'm like, dude, this is so much fun, dude. Like, this is awesome. And so the 2 different beginnings led to 2 complete different outcomes. And that's why I try to consciously take my son on days where I think it'll be a good hunt, but it's also not going to be frigid cold. Like, I don't want to take him on the best days, when it's 20 degrees and dumping snow in the middle of the rut. And it's like, dude, this is going to be a legendary day. I want to take him first couple days of November when it's still 50 degrees and he's not going to freeze, but he's not going to be hot, and he's going to see deer. He's going to see some action, and he's going to like it. He's going to enjoy it. So consciously try to figure out like what days are going to be good, but what days are also not going to ruin my kid, for hunting. So, how long ago? This was just last week, the 40-year anniversary deer, right?
Yeah, October 5th.
October 5th. Did you wake up and say, like, you know what, no matter what, I'm killing a buck today? Or was it like, I'm still going to be selective? Or was it, man, I don't care if it's a doe. I just want to shoot a deer on the 40-year anniversary?
It's funny. So I planned this hunt in Nevada. So I guided for Nevada High Ridge Outfitters for numerous years. I'm going to say 10 years or so, 12 years. And they were always very good to me. Very, very good guide service there in Nevada. And I worked hard for them. I made them some pretty good money, I think, helped them build their business, killed some really nice animals over the years. And the son to the dad that I guided for, he's kind of helping run the business now. And he called me one day and we were just BSing. And he said, man, you should put in the guides draw. So if nobody knows, there's a regular draw in Nevada and there's a guides draw. So if you put in the guides draw, your odds of drawing a deer tag in Nevada, obviously depending on which unit you put in for, but the unit I put in for generally takes about 7 years to draw that tag. Now, on a normal draw, you're probably 15 to 17 years to draw that tag without the guides draw. So Seth tells me, he says, hey, we'd like to kind of donate you a hunt, the last kind of Nevada hunt you'll probably do. And because him and I talked, and I told him after I broke my back in 2019 and I just can't walk like I used to. And things just aren't the same. So he said, let's try to get you one last good Nevada hunt. Right. So I put in, after only 2 years, I drew the hunt. It was, the guy said, you're the luckiest guy in the world, man. You drew the tag after 2 years and they weren't really expecting it. So honestly, I packed up all my stuff to be down there for 20 days. I was going to be there 5 days early, stay a couple days after the season. I was going to plan to be in Nevada 20 days, hunt hard for 20 days and kill the biggest deer I could find. So, and it's kind of funny because the 40 years to the day thing didn't even hit me until after I killed the deer.
Really?
No, didn't even dawn on me till after I killed that deer.
How soon after? Like standing over it or like, get home, it's already packed out? Like,
I kind of was thinking about it a little bit while we were standing over that deer. And then when we got it out and my walk back to the machine, it's just a huge range of emotions. We'll go through all that in just a minute. But really, the day before the season opened, I found this big 2-point, and I've always wanted to kill just a 2x2, no eye guards, 2-point on each side. His back tine was 17 inches tall, 28-inch wide buck, just a huge 2x2, big, old, mature buck. And I found him alongside the road.
Trying to kill the world record Forky, huh?
Oh my gosh, this thing was unreal. I got to show you a picture of him. It's unbelievable how big this deer is. And it's funny because the pictures don't really do him justice, unless you see it in person. But
I had a whitetail kind of like that. I named him Forkinator.
So people in the whitetail world, they might not understand how wide a mule deer's ears are, right? A mature mule deer, when he's at full attention and he's staring at you, they're generally about 23 to 25 inches wide, depending how old he is. This is a fork and horn.
Oh, wow.
See how wide outside his ears he is? He's another 3 inches each side. So if
that's cool.
He's 26 to 28 inches wide, depending on how big his body is. So I knew where this deer went. He went up in the rocks and kind of went over the other side. And I've guided this area before, so I know the area very well. So I called the guy and I said, hey, have a guy come out here, be with me tomorrow. So I go over that evening and I sit about 1.5 miles away, get the spotting scope out, and I'm watching, and I found the deer again. I found him. Well, with him was another buck that was right with his ears. Heavy horn, big, tall. You could tell he was really pretty. Then it really dawned on me how big this forked horn really is.
Uh-huh.
Because that buck was right at his ears, and he's 25 inches wide.
Yeah.
That 2-point was with him, and his body absolutely dwarfed him. He actually looked like an elk standing next to a deer. He's that big. So now looking back, seeing that forked horn, knowing how wide out past his ears were probably actually 26 inches wide because he's so big. So he's probably 30 inches as a forked horn. Huge. So I watch him that evening, make sure they're still there in the evening. The guy gets there that afternoon and I tell him where it's at. Took us about 40 minutes to walk into the spot where he was. Didn't find him in there. So we made a plan to walk. He was going to go back and get the machine. I was going to walk around the other side of the mountain and he's going to pick me up on the other side. Well, about 30 minutes into my walk up the other side, he calls me and says, hey, that buck's right here below the four-wheeler or the machine. Literally, he was 300 yards drinking water right below the machine. So I scoot back over there and we get back over there. That deer starts coming up the canyon, and I realize that that's the smaller of the two bucks. The big one's not there anymore. I don't know where he was at. But it was at that moment that I realized, after having the back surgery back in 2019, this is where I'm going to get emotional, so don't tease me too bad.
Oh, I won't.
When I had this back surgery years ago, I thought, hey, I'm going to be good. I broke my back. They had put screws and rods in my back. It's my L4, L5, S1 are all fused. It took me about 45 minutes to get to where we were going. And looking at that deer down there, I'm thinking, that's a really nice, respectable buck. And I know I'm here for 20 days, but I honestly don't think my body can do this again. I just can't. There's no way. After walking for an hour and a half, how am I going to go kill a big deer? How am I going to kill a big mule deer buck in the mountains of Nevada that are super steep, very high? It's just not going to happen. So I just sat there and contemplated to myself. I watched this deer for about a half an hour, and I said, that's a very mature buck, very big bodied buck, and very respectable, for 90% of the people that ever kill mule deer in Nevada. They would be likely proud to kill the deer that I killed. So I shot the deer. We walked down to it and do all the pictures and the blessings and the thank yous to the man upstairs. And I'll show you a picture of that deer. And like I said, to be honest, I don't think there's a mule deer hunter out there that probably wouldn't shoot that deer.
Oh, absolutely. That's awesome, dude.
Probably one of the biggest bodied mule deer I've ever killed in my life. If you look at this picture of that body.
Wow.
That thing is like an elk. His neck was 31 inches in diameter. Just a very, very, very big, huge, old, respectable deer. I believe he's probably 7.5 years old. So we do the whole thing. And the guy that was with me, he was he's going to drag the buck to the bottom. We could drive the machine down there. And I went back. But, getting back to the machine from the 45-minute walk in took me almost 2 hours to get out with just my gun and my backpack. No meat, no extras, no nothing. And it was at that point, walking back to the machine, I says, "What are you doing? I've killed deer. I've killed respectable deer. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? Why are you doing? You're killing yourself." My knees wouldn't work. My back wouldn't work. My ankles hurt. I couldn't do it. And physically, I'm in great shape. My lungs are there. My mind says I can do it. My body shuts down. It just can't take those mountains anymore. So, then we got everything done and got back to camp that evening. And I was sitting there with just me and myself and a glass of whiskey looking at that deer. And it really dawned on me. I said, it was October 5th, 1985. I killed my first deer with that rifle. That was my grandpa's rifle, and that it really hit me hard knowing that I did it, but now I can't do it anymore. And that, I can find other ways to hunt. I hunt Maryland and I do other things. I can still hunt. That's not the point. The point is that I was raised to walk the mountains and do it in the mountains. And that's my passion. That's my true passion, right? That's going to sit in a tree. Is it hard? Is it grueling to sit in a tree and wait for big whitetail bucks? Absolutely. When I was a kid, I was like, why the heck would people do that? Now that I've done it, it is unbelievable what these deer can see, what they can smell, what they can sense. So absolutely 100% it is hunting. I can still go do that. I can still go climb a tree. That's not what was bred into me as a child, right? So that's where we go back to, like you said, being part of where you're from and the mountains and being essentially a mountain man, right? When we were kids, that's what we were always, we're going to be a mountain man and we're going to do this. Just walking those mountains used to be such an easy thing for me, and it was gratifying for me. And to have that taken away from you, you might as well take my legs.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where it was really, really, I had a hard night all by myself out there sitting, having a few drinks and contemplating my life. And, you know, I said, I believe I'm going to write a book about a lot of the stories I think people would enjoy reading. My son said, "Oh, nobody reads anymore, Dad." I said, there's still a few guys out there that probably would pick this book up and they would read it just to help them relive some of their stories, right? Because I have all these stories from my kids to when I started guiding to the guys that I've taken guiding, man. I mean, I let some of these guys that I guided kill deer that I watched deer all through archery season. One year, this buck was 196-inch 4x4 that was bedding off of a county road. I could have killed him 1,000 times with my bow. And I knew this client was coming. I knew the guy was a good guy. I left that deer and I let this guy kill that deer with a muzzleloader that year. You know, and I think I got more enjoy out of taking people hunting than I did actually killing them myself at times. And that's where I took a lot of guys hunting before I even guided, you know, and the guy that I guided for years, he said, "Man, what are you doing? Why are you," he said, "I'll pay you to go take people. You want to go take people hunting and kill them big deer? I'll pay you and you can go take them," you know? So I think getting back to the 40-year thing, it's losing that ability to be able to walk those mountains anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't think unless a guy has truly walked the mountains of Nevada or Colorado or, you know, even New Mexico has some nice mountains. But until you've made that elevation climb, we start at 4,500 feet, right? And there's no roads up to 9,000 feet. Until you've done that numerous times in your life and done that 4,000 foot elevation climb in a day to go hunt a deer and then put it on your back and bring it out after the fact, until you've done that, I don't know that you can actually truly respect the feelings that I feel of that being yanked away from me.
Yeah.
So that's where it was a tough one for me. It was a really tough one for me, you know, and all us guys can act big and macho as we want, but at the end of the day, somebody takes that from you, man, it's heartbreaking for sure.
Man. Guys, I am all about prioritizing your feet. If you take care of your feet on the mountains or in the tree stand, you will just undoubtedly last longer. I remember the first time I ever went out west wearing a cheap pair of boots and cotton socks. Hot spots and blisters absolutely just took over that hunt. And here's what I learned. The more comfortable your feet are, the further you'll go, the faster you'll get there, the longer you'll stay on the mountain, and you'll just hunt better because your mind is on the hunt, not on your feet. That's when I come upon Schnee's. Schnee's makes the best mountain boots, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and tell you my favorite pair. My favorite pair is the Timberlines. I have ran the mountain in those on several different occasions, several different climates, several different, terrain types. And those boots just seem to always perform. They're light, they're fast, they're comfortable. There's no break in. They're Italian made. They're high quality, phenomenal boots. However, I'm also here in the Midwest, do a lot of Midwest hunting, a lot of tree stand hunting, and I'm a big fan of rubber boots for that. Here's why. Leather holds scent. So I'm a big fan that I don't want any leather on my feet when I'm whitetail hunting, walking in and out of my tree stands. So I've always been a leather boot guy. A couple years ago, Schnee's introduced the Highwoods. They now have it in a 0-gram insulation and a 400-gram insulation. It's a phenomenal rubber boot. Again, I have pushed those boots really hard. I've actually used them on quite a few snowy pheasant hunts, walked a lot of miles in them. They're super, super comfortable, super warm, super tough. Guys, prioritize your feet. Take care of your feet. If you're sitting in a tree stand, make sure your feet are going to be warm. If you're on the mountain, make sure you've got a good pair of merino socks and a good pair of boots so you can stay on the mountain longer, hunt harder, be more successful. Guys, go to schnees.com. That's SCHNEES.com for the best boots money can buy. And dude, I don't care where you grew up. Like, I don't care where you grew up or how you grew up hunting. When you get to go back to the area where you cut your teeth, when you get to go back to the area where you learn to do it all, you experienced it for the first time, like, it's more special than any other thing. Like, if you were to give me the option tomorrow to go on an all expense paid elk hunt, moose hunt, whatever, or go sit in the Ozarks with my dad, I'm going to go sit in the Ozarks with my dad, because I don't know how many more times I got left to do that. Like, I mean, he's old, he's banged up. His ticker ain't ticking like it used to. And, I don't know how many more times I have to do that. And
yeah,
man, I'll never forget. There was a scare with my dad one time, and, now you're going to make me cry, jerk. There was a scare with my dad one time, and I was driving down the road when I got the phone call, and I remember just stopping and thinking, dude, who do I call when I shoot a deer now? Like, he's always been my first call. He's always been my first FaceTime. Like, I don't even call my wife first. I call my dad first. And, mainly because my wife's response is, so that means you're coming home. My dad's response is excitement. But he's always been my first call. And I remember stopping thinking, who do I call now? I remember stopping thinking, like, man, when I go back home for Thanksgiving, I don't get to hunt with him anymore. Like, those thoughts went through my head. And so I don't know how many more times I got left to hunt with the old dude. And when you go back home, and it's special about the place too. It's not just when you go back home to where this is where I cut my teeth, man. This is where I shot the first one. This is where, this happened. This is where Dad's truck got stuck and we had to end up camping in the truck overnight. This is where, all of those things come back to you. And I can promise you, I would be in the same boat if hunting the Ozarks was taken away from me, of thinking, but dude, this is like, sure, I can go hunt other places. I know that. I'm not saying that. I can still go do this and that. But this place and this way is special. And that's why, like, man, it's so much more than a trophy. And it's so much more than antlers on the wall. And people don't understand that. Like, the non-hunting community thinks we're just a bunch of bloodthirsty animals, who want to put antlers on the wall. It's so much more than that. Like, it is truly a part of who we are. It's a part of what made me who I am. It's a part of, I wouldn't be who I am today without those times in the Ozarks with Dad. Like, I truly wouldn't be. It's so much more than the trophy. And I would encourage everybody to not wait until something tragic happens. And I say tragic as, something being taken, or losing somebody you hunted with, or, not being able to hunt an area anymore. So maybe not maybe tragic's not the right word. Until something life-changing about the way you hunt happens. Don't wait until then to stop and reminisce and take time to be thankful and take time to go back to those places and take time to hunt with those same people and take time to remember those moments and bask in those moments. And, cause man, it truly is special. Like, and unfortunately you waited until that 40-year mark where it was like, well, I don't get to do this anymore. Like, this is gone, Yeah.
You know what is funny? I never thought about having deer mounted, when I was younger. And the year that my oldest son, now he's 37, when he was 12, my dad was with me, and I actually killed my first trophy that I ever had mounted. I'll have to show you real quick. There's my camera up here. But if you can see him.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
That buck got me addicted to trophy taxidermy. And you know what's funny is I hear people say, you just want to, we hear people say this all the time to hunters, right? You guys are killers. You just want to put stuff on the wall. It's sickening, blah, 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 right? So I have all these stories in every one of these animals on the wall. Yeah. Every one of these animals has a huge story behind it, right? I have been very, very, very fortunate in my time to kill all these animals, but all these animals, I was with somebody special, right?
Yeah.
I remember
absolutely.
every one of them. I mean, these antelope, that big, huge deer right there, that was actually taken in the city of Meridian, essentially, in the city.
Really?
Limits, in the city limits, in a field with a bow and arrow, 205-inch deer, right? That deer behind him up there, I shot that deer at 50 yards on the run with a bow, right? So that's where I go back to, it's not necessarily about you're mounting a trophy, right? It's more about I'm preserving a memory.
100%.
That's what people don't understand about us guys that hunt, right? We're not doing this to put trophies on the wall. That's not what we do it for. We do it for the memories. Yeah. And well, I'll tell you, I wished I had that set of fork and horn antlers still. I don't have it, but like my daughter hasn't hunted in years, but I have 3 of her sets of antlers on my wall. Her first 3 deer that she killed. One of them, she was pregnant at 16 years old. We walked the mountains of Nevada. She walked with me pregnant. She was a month from giving birth to her first child at 16 years old. And she killed a deer with me, so
that's cool.
It's all those kinds of things that I really think I want to put in a book. And I really hope people would find it interesting and find it a neat read, and hopefully bring back some of that to some people, like we talked about early on, right? That this is why we did it. We didn't go do it. We always did everything for us for the meat, right? I mean, that's what every year we had a buck tag and a doe tag when I was a kid, and my dad we'd go shoot a buck and then we would shoot a doe. He always said, you don't shoot a doe unless you can shoot her in the head. And that's it. It's a quick put down. You don't lose any meat. So there's a lot behind it. I have a pretty good history. I've been very fortunate to do what I do, and just sucks that I can't do some of it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, and that's, going back to the memories on the wall, I have the unique opportunity to, because of my job, to get to talk to, some of the most profound killers on planet Earth. And almost every single time you ask them, what's your favorite trophy? It's never the biggest. It's never the world record that I just shot. It's always, that was the last one I shot with my grandpa before he went to be with Jesus. Well, that was the last one that I, shot with my son before he moved off to college. Well, that was the first one I shot. Well, that was the day my kid was born. I shot that, before I went to the hospital. And I mean, you hear those stories and it is about the memory. And, I would dare say that usually it's, if I went into my basement, usually it's actually probably all of the smallest that are important. Like it's the smallest ones that are important. And the only deer I have in my shop, in my studio out here, that hangs on the wall right there. I sent you pictures of it because I used one of your skull hangers. But the only one that I brought out here is not the biggest or the most impressive, but it was the first deer that my son was with me when we shot, that we shot together. And so that's why it's the most special to me. And every time my son has friends over, like he wants to come out and show him the deer, and he'll say, that's our deer. We shot that together. We killed that buck together, Dad. And that's why it's special. And then you look, I got a little bitty bear mounted. That spring bear I shot this year was itty bitty. But my son was with me. We shot a bear 34 yards on the ground, no blind, no tree stand, with my bow, and my 6-year-old son with me. Like, that was the coolest thing that's ever happened to us. So when I get that mount back, it's going to be like, man, you got these cool bears in here. Why'd you get that little one done? Oh, that little one's the most special one, actually. And here's why. And no, I'm not, I don't have just a crazy amount of money to spend on taxidermy. So you don't see a bunch of big shoulder mounts and a bunch of impressive shoulder mounts. Usually they're skulls that I bowled in the backyard. But I want to be able to share those memories with other people. I want to be able to, when they come in, share the stories and look back and say, well, that deer here, this is what happened. That bear here, this is what happened. That, and share those stories and let them relive those moments with me. Not only that, but share with them, let them see that it's more than just a trophy on the wall. Let them see that, listen, the antlers aren't what's important. Like the skulls are not what's important. We don't do this for the horns. We do this because it's a part of who we are. We do this because it's what we love, is what we're passionate about. And like you said, these represent so much more than a deer that we shot. Like, it's so much more than that. These are my relationships with people. These are my memories. These are my most fondest times in life are hanging here on this wall.
Yeah, sure. Yep. And I have a bunch of them.
Well, you've got a couple. I've seen a couple back there.
Yeah. I'm just talking more about memories, because I hunted with my friends and people that I know. So what you see on my wall, this is like a tiny little portion of the stuff I've been involved with over the years and the people that I've been able to take hunting, and even some new people that I've got to introduce to the outdoors that have taken really nice animals. So, there's a lot to it. It's just, it's an emotional time for me. Very emotional time for me.
Yeah. Well, you're getting old, and as you get older, there's more emotion,
Man, you ain't kidding.
Darrell, man, it's a pleasure as always to have you on, man. Thank you for sharing the story, because my hope in this is that people will look back on those memories and just take time to just go down to the trophy room, man, and look around. Go down to the trophy room and just soak it in and listen, take time and go back to those places where you cut your teeth. Take time to go back to those big pines in South Arkansas. Like, too many times we get caught up in the big bad hunts and going on, these cool hunts and traveling, and just take time to go back to that same old back 40 behind Mama's house that you used to hunt on. Like, Are you going to shoot a mega giant? Probably not. I mean, are you going to see a 200-inch deer? Probably not. But it's more than that. So cancel the elk hunt next year. Cancel the antelope hunt next year and just say, I'm going to go spend a week on the back 40. I'm going to go spend a week on Mama's place. I'm going to go spend a week down in the tall pines of Arkansas, where it all began for me, where it all started. I'm going to go take time and hike the mountains in Nevada, because that's where it all started. That's where it began. And one day I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. One day I'm going to lose this ability. So while I do still have the ability, I'm going to go do it. That's my hopes.
100%, man. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to write a book. I believe I'm going to call it 40 Years a Hunter, and we'll see what it does. I've never written. I can't wait, man. I'm not a good writer, but
you got AI now, dude. You just put it all into AI to write a book for you.
I just don't like the AI thing, man. If it don't come out of me naturally, it ain't coming out. And it's nice to use for emails, because I can send some snotty emails sometimes, and it's nice to polish those snotty emails up. But
yeah, I feel you, man. I want
to write it true and from the heart, and I want to put on paper everything, because there's a lot of people that probably from the Midwest that have never smelled wet sagebrush.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
It's a different thing. Like, you get up in the morning, you wake up and you walk outside and it had rained the night before, and the smell of wet sagebrush is unbelievable. It's indescribable. Right. And once you've had that sensation, you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things that I want to put down on paper to kind of give people that understanding of what it is to hunt out west.
Well, AI can proofread it for you. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Save money on the proof. My AI does a lot of proofreading, and sometimes I get it back and like, dude, did a second grader write this? And I'm like, I worked hard on that. Like, you misspelt 72 of the 74 words, and I'm like, come on, man. Guys, if you like to build arrows or work on your bows at home, you have to know about a little website called papertuner.com. I have a little studio here, a little space here where I work on my bows, and big paper tuners just used to take up all the space. You couldn't hang them anywhere nice and neat. They took up a lot of floor space. And then I come across papertuner.com. What you get from papertuner.com is an all-in-one solution to paper tune your bows. They come with all the magnetic strings, all the clips you need. You can hang it up in a matter of seconds, take it down in a matter of seconds, hang it on the wall. It is a phenomenal way to paper tune your bows. However, they also have incredible arrow spinners. They have arrow stands. If you don't have a place to hang your paper tuner, they even make tripod mounts so you can mount it on just a regular old tripod. Guys, papertuner.com is a phenomenal solution for little shops that just don't have a lot of space for a big old paper tuner. Guys, go check them out, papertuner.com. I promise you'll be glad you did. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Darrell, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone have a great week. Good luck this season, and keep the dusty side up.